cả chun sẽ rây xua xây ơi đó lúc ơi cơm má ong kia xôm bàn thọ mong ơi xóm sao phía sọp tên tiếng bìa ơi anh biết ơi
Good morning. My name is Shioni Flegel, and I'm the Executive Director of Housing California. I am so honored to welcome you to this year's Housing California Conference in the beautiful and diverse city of Long Beach. Please join me in giving another round of applause to the dancers who welcomed us this morning. The Modern Aspara Company, also known as MAC, is a Long Beach-based dance company that bridges the modern world to the sacred art of Cambodian classical dance. We're grateful to the dancers for sharing the Cambodian blessing dance with us. This is a traditional dance performed to mark special holidays in Cambodia, and we're so grateful for them bringing that to all of us. You'll see throughout the conference, we really wanted to elevate and lift up the communities that live here in Long Beach that make this the rich, vibrant place that it is. So throughout the conference, we hope you enjoy the performers and artists, I'll say more about that in a minute, who are bringing their work to us here at Housing California. As many of you know, since 1988, Housing California has worked to create a future with homes, health, and prosperity for all in thriving communities. We bring together a diverse cross-sector network made up of all of you to prevent and end homelessness, increase the supply of safe, stable, affordable homes, and reverse the legacy of racial and economic inequities. We do this by building power with the people most directly impacted by housing injustice. Specifically, we work through our Residents United network, where our RUN leaders, I think over here, thank you to our RUN leaders. We work with our amazing resident leaders to bring their voices into the places where housing policies are made and shaped. We work to shape narratives, and we advocate for the passage of transformative statewide policies, the particular emphasis on those laid out in Roadmap Home. Roadmap Home is our bold, long-term plan to create the future we want for California. We produce this in partnership with the California Housing Partnership and with so many of you. If you haven't already done so, I encourage you to check it out. You can find it online. Roadmap and our work are really a reminder that our commitment today is not so different from the early housing advocates who started this conference over 45 years ago. This is our 45th conference. I was 3 years old. I guess I'm not supposed to share my age. I was 3 years old when people started coming together to do this. Those leaders knew that we needed to do things differently, to identify, adopt, and implement solutions to address the crisis that so many Californians were experiencing and continue to experience. In coming together, they successfully championed solutions that have served our communities in countless ways. They've changed the shape of our neighborhoods. They've expanded the housing opportunities for families. They've kept people stable. Now all of us carry that baton forward. I'm thrilled to work with our talented staff. You can come say hi to them up here, our dedicated board, our RUN leaders, and all of you to continue this critical work. Together, we can create a powerful and aligned cross-sector movement that can both respond to the immediate needs of our communities while also driving big transformational change forward. Change that overcomes our history of discrimination and exclusion and creates a future where all people, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender or their economic background, has an opportunity to truly reach their full potential. I hope that in bringing us together, this year's conference provides a forum to share big ideas, to build alliances, and explore new ways of thinking, of doing business, and most importantly, of achieving results for our communities. We are so happy, I know I'm speaking on behalf of our board and our staff, to welcome you to this year's event and are proud of the conference program we've put together. Yesterday, many of you got to participate in the incredible tours led by our Long Beach partners, in deep dive learning labs, in just getting to know each other. Over the next 2 days, we hope you're inspired by the performances and interactive art exhibits that our local Long Beach artists have brought to us, by the thought-provoking plenaries, workshops that highlight best practices and lessons learned, new roundtable discussions that should give you an opportunity to dialogue and engage on tough issues facing our movement and sector, and some informal table gatherings at lunch, HCD office hours. Thank you to the HCD team for bringing their work directly to us, and networking opportunities galore. It takes a village to put on a conference of this scale. So please give a huge thank you to our sponsors, the staff, consultants, artists, volunteers, Housing California Board of Directors, and everyone else who played a part in putting this conference together so that we can enjoy and learn. Additional gratitude to the session conveners and tour leaders who are bringing their insight and expertise so that all of us can learn from them. And of course, to the hotel and convention center staff who are taking care of all of our needs and making sure we're well supported while we're here. I want to give a special shout out to our local planning committee. We had an amazing group of Long Beach leaders who helped shape the conference in so many ways. We haven't done this before. We didn't know how our planning committee would work. These folks took our charge and went above and beyond to make this a conference that's really rooted in the community of Long Beach. And a huge thank you to all of you for joining us on this journey as we celebrate our success and work to realize a just housing future for California. We cannot do it without all of you. Before we move into our program, I want to review a few housekeeping items. First, we want to make sure you have the best conference experience. If you haven't already done it, our mobile app, Huva, is a great source of information. You can connect with partners. We'll be posting information about sessions there throughout the day. You can get your questions answered. You can also go to our staff at the check-in table if you have any questions. Second, I know this may seem like old hat, but for the safety of all of our guests, if you have COVID, if you don't feel well, please leave. We will miss you, but we will thank you. Third, as I mentioned, we've woven arts and culture components throughout the conference to help connect not just our heads, but our hearts to this critical work. I encourage you to join other conference participants in the Pacific Plenary Concourse and the exhibit area for 2 interactive immersive art installations by local artists Trin Mai and Jose Loza. Trin created a fabric house art installation titled Peace Be to This House that serves as a gentle participatory call for collective action. Each of you is invited over the next 2 days to contribute a word that encapsulates your personal feelings and or a memory you envision when you think about home. The hope is that this installation will travel to future Housing California conferences each year, gathering more feelings and memories from our attendees to serve as a visual reminder of why we're doing this work together. And Jose Loza created a custom poster design inspired by this year's conference theme in the community of Long Beach. You'll have an opportunity to grab a poster or to print your own. He's setting up I don't remember what you call it, where you screen them. So you can make your own one-of-a-kind conference artwork right out here after the session. We encourage you to visit the exhibit hall and meet all of our amazing sponsors who make this event possible year after year. We truly are blessed to have an amazing community of folks who are invested in this conference and in the well-being of our organization. Last but not least, we hope you enjoy yourselves. I look forward to connecting with all of you over the next couple of days and hope you have lots of opportunity to connect with each other. Now, before we dive into this morning's plenary, we have the opportunity to hear from 3 amazing leaders in the housing space. First, we'll hear from the chair of our local planning committee and previous Housing California board member, a long-term friend, and now council member-elect, Tanua Thrash and Took. We'll also have an opportunity to be joined by Long Beach's mayor and affordable housing champion, Rex Richardson, who is just doing amazing work for our communities here in Long Beach. And last but certainly not least, we'll hear from our longtime partner and dear friend and the title sponsor of this morning's Plenary, Cecile Calafor, the Managing Director for Community Development Banking from JP Morgan and Morgan Chase. Without further ado, Tanua, please join me on the stage to share a few remarks on behalf of our local planning committee.
Good morning, good morning. Welcome. I can hear you if you said anything, so please feel free to do so. Welcome to Long Beach and welcome to the annual Housing California Conference. As was stated, I'm Tanua Thrash-Intook, President and CEO of the Center by Lindustry. Thank you so much, Shioni, for that introduction and for kicking us off today. I am so very proud to serve as the host City Planning Conference Committee Chair. I believe that Long Beach is the perfect place for us to discuss and collaborate, because it's not just an event for me, it is my home. And I am deeply committed to this community and the work that we are all doing to prevent homelessness and to increase the supply of safe, decent, and affordable housing. I want to take just a brief minute to thank those who volunteered, raised their hand, and said, yes, this is going to be in Long Beach, and we want to showcase our best. These folks committed to making sure that they attended meetings, and we had local influence, fantastic tours, and key topics in today's conversation. As I call your name, feel free to wave, and we can applaud at the end. Connor Locke, Office of the Mayor, Mayor Rex Richardson. Paul Monhay, Office of the Mayor, Mayor Rex Richardson. Jane Suazo, Long Beach Forward. Andre Donato, Long Beach Libre. Andrew Maduhano, Long Beach Libre. Brian Diare, City Fabric, Century Housing. Andy Kerr, County of Los Angeles Homeless and Housing Commission. Sunile Chang, Link Housing. Kimberly Wee, Century Housing. Dana Trujillo, Accelerate Housing. Norma Dominguez, Accelerate Housing. Carl Kemp, Long Beach City College. Paul Duncan, City of Long Beach Housing. Teresa Chandler, City of Long Beach Deputy City Manager. Ade Tesfaye, City National Bank. And Megan Sorensen, City of Long Beach. Round of applause for all of our local host committee members. The fact that this conference is sold out tells us that it is an incredible moment and need for us to come together, share ideas, listen, and to collaborate on solutions. You'll hear a lot about that over the next couple of days. So let's all celebrate the strides that we have made this last year in California, ensuring our residents have access to housing. While we recognize there's much needed to be done, I am confident that every individual in this room are the right people, the right group to come together to make that change. So I'm up here this morning also to introduce our next speaker. This person is someone who I call a friend and is also leading our city's efforts in its housing work. Mayor Rex Richardson has a distinguished record of public service. He has served as a city council member here in Long Beach from 2014 to 2022, representing the 9th District. He has also served 2 terms as vice mayor and has been named both the youngest city council member as well as youngest vice mayor. He also broke records, becoming our city's first African-American mayor. His track record of creating positive change for his community has left an indelible mark, and he continues to work alongside local city leaders and community members to ensure that Long Beach has economic vitality, is safe, and is a pro-housing city. He has declared a state of emergency on homelessness here in Long Beach, making sure that we put all the resources behind housing the most vulnerable here in Long Beach. Please join me with a round of applause and welcoming Long Beach's mayor, Mayor Rex Richardson.
Well, good morning. Let's hear for Tanua Thresh Intook, council member-elect in the city of Long Beach. Well, we can say the election isn't fully certified yet, but I'm the mayor. I can call an election. I'm calling it. I'm calling it for Tanua, right? So we look forward to certainly welcoming her leadership to the city council. And Shioni, thank you so much, you and your incredible team at Housing California, for selecting Long Beach to host this incredible conference, and all the people named on the local committee. You did a great job. And obviously, I'm biased. I think you picked the right place. I think your search committee did a big search across all the cities across California, and I think what's important are the values. Long Beach is a city that is a housing jurisdiction, a pro-housing jurisdiction. We believe in housing. We want to build that housing, and we want it to be affordable for our residents to live in it. And so after your long search, I think you finally found the place for this incredible conference. I want to, thank you, absolutely. So I want to first, as mayor, welcome all of you. You look great this morning to the dynamic city of Long Beach for your Housing California 2024 conference. Thank you to all the sponsors and all the organizers who brought this inspiring group of leaders to gather here in our city to experience our beautiful waterfront, to take tours and see the things that we're doing around housing. It's great to see our Cambodian community reflected in the opening art piece. We're a very culturally diverse city. We're the largest population of Cambodians in the United States, reside right here in the city of Long Beach. And so we believe that this is a place where people come to pursue their dreams. Many of you went out and saw some tours and went all across our city. And we're a city that is economically diverse, where you see communities of proud working families all across our city, from longshoremen working in our ports to construction workers, public employees. And so we are still yet one of the most affordable beach communities in California. So while exploring, you've seen firsthand some of the innovative work we're doing in Long Beach. And I heard some of the partners like Century and like Link that we're working in tandem with to develop smart, modern housing solutions for our community. And because of that collaboration, we're proud of our progress. We've built, over the last 4 years, more affordable housing than the next 9 cities in population in LA County combined. So it's important that we keep firing on all cylinders to keep housing being produced. And we're continuing to learn and grow. We've learned from experience. We have innovations that help share our success across the region, because one city, we're just one city, but our region experiencing 1.4 million units of housing that we need to build. And so we have to work together to learn from one another. Across our state, small communities, large communities, urban communities, rural, we face similar challenges. And we also share many strengths, and we can work together to transform those challenges into real opportunities that will help for our residents to thrive. And our residents certainly deserve that opportunity. Every neighborhood is filled with proud, hardworking families here in Long Beach that deserve the dignity of a home. And we have a responsibility in local government. We are where the rubber meets the road, so we are agents for that change. We have to make sure that we utilize our power to make lives easier for families to have access to these housing opportunities. That's a promise. That's a covenant that we should keep with our residents. And it's that promise here in California that actually brought me to California. I talked about it a little bit earlier in the Black Developers Forum. I'm not originally from California. I moved here on a Greyhound bus with my single mom, my older sister, my younger brother from rural Alabama. And it was on that Greyhound bus. It was a long ride, and we carried with us, I brought a bunch of comic books to read and also fried chicken wrapped in foil. Why fried chicken? Because fried chicken lasts a long time and it's a long bus ride. So anybody who's ever been on a long bus ride, you want to get food that stays. And so when we got here, chasing this opportunity, the California dream, what we found is that it was a bit hard to make ends meet, but we were raised with a hard work ethic. Everyone contributes. So I worked at the local Jack in the Box, and my sister worked at the local stationery shop, and my mom worked at Arby's. And we all made around minimum wage, but we all contributed. I paid the light bill. My sister paid the phone bill. My mom paid the rent. We shared a 2-bedroom apartment. My younger brother and my sister shared a room. My mother had her room. She paid the rent. She got her own room. And I got to sleep on the couch, which is fine because that's where the TV was. And growing up, I'll tell you, there are people all across all across our city and our state, single moms working hard to make ends meet, to provide food on the table, keep a roof over their heads. That's what my mother did, to give opportunities for me to pursue my education, to do things like go to college as a first-generation college student, buy a home at 25 here in the city of Long Beach, and ultimately put down roots and work every day to make a difference in other people's lives. We know that this is an opportunity that we have to really impact the lives of so many more people, and that's why we have to do everything we can, and that's really what drives my focus here in the city of Long Beach. That's why last fall as mayor, and my first year as mayor, we placed a real focus on innovative solutions for housing. We proposed a new partnership called the Long Beach Housing Promise, a new agreement in partnership with the City of Long Beach Unified School District, Long Beach City College, and Long Beach State to develop affordable housing for students and explore opportunities to build housing out in our communities and leverage land and other things, because it's all of our responsibility to build housing. Last year, we became a pro-housing jurisdiction in California. We became one of the first cities in the state to approve a housing element, because we have to make sure that our plans are updated. And I believe that in order to make a real meaningful difference in people's lives, you plan the work and you work the plan. So our task now is to implement that housing element plan. And a part of that includes securing stable housing to help develop housing for future generations and helping people successfully transition to home ownership. We just brought back down payment assistance as a part of our recovery planning here in Long Beach, and exploring things like a community land trust to make sure there's alternative housing home ownership models that we're piloting here in the city of Long Beach. We're also doubling down on accessory dwelling units. It's one of the fastest growing housing types in California, and we're proud that Long Beach is the per capita leader in affordable housing approvals and developments in the state of California. That's a good thing. But we also know that, again, we can't do it alone. It requires regional solutions to this big regional crisis. I'm proud to serve as vice chair of the Los Angeles County Affordable Housing Solutions Agency, alongside Supervisor Holly Mitchell, our chair. And we are bringing together all 88 plus the county, 89 jurisdictions, to make sure we have the resources we need so that every community can have the resources they need to build housing that's affordable. Because the truth is, everyone deserves access to housing. Everyone deserves dignity, a home that they can be proud of. And we're working hard here in Long Beach, across LA County, and across our state to make that happen. And we want to continue to partner with you. Our team is here. We're all here. The city of Long Beach is here. We're excited to host this event and welcome you. And if you see a member of our team, our deputy mayors, our community development team, make sure you stop and meet them and talk about ways that we can partner to make a real meaningful difference in the lives of people of our communities. So come and talk with us. Let's build a brighter future together. And here in Long Beach and across the great state of California, thank you so much for the opportunity, and welcome to Long Beach. Thank you.
True impact starts from the ground up. At JP Morgan Chase, that means empowering people and strengthening communities by expanding access to capital. Our community development banking group links financial value to social impact on all our projects, no matter how complex.
One of the thematic challenges we see for BIPOC businesses is the need for working capital.
And we're hopeful that the visibility that's gained from this will be able to impact other small businesses as well.
When I was homeless, I wasn't really able, to do things right without having a stable living situation.
A brand new facility is incredible and it's wonderful, but what I really wanted this building to symbolize to the kids was to know how much people loved them in this community.
With the support of our industry, we can invest in real people and the places they live, learn, work, and play. Together, we make purposeful visions possible.
morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to welcome you today on behalf of JP Morgan Chase as one of the title sponsors for the Housing California Conference. Thank you, Mayor Richardson, for joining us today and for welcoming us in your beautiful city. It's really a pleasure to be here. And it's nice to move away from Sacramento once in a blue moon, right? I'm Cécile Chalifour. I'm the head of the West for Community Development Banking for JP Morgan Chase, which means I manage our affordable housing platform for the bank, for the West. I want to start us off by reminding us all of the magic of what it is that we do every day. Because we work very hard in affordable housing, right? This whole room is full of people who work really, really hard to make a difference. But I wanted to, again, take a moment to share a story. This is a story that one of my bankers shared with me a few weeks ago as we were dealing with one of his fantastic issues that comes up once in a blue moon with our dear friends at the housing department that got us all organized, solving problem. And it was a moment that reminded me why we do this, the joy of it. This is a story of a young woman called Daisy. Her parents are from Mexico. They're strawberry pickers in our fields. Until recently, they lived in a rundown trailer, all 8 of them, 1 bedroom. That young woman shared at an event recently that about like a year ago, she attended financial literacy class that was organized by one of our community banker, that the developer, Chispa, had put together. She went there because she wanted to learn how to save. She was very grateful for it, and she shared how much of a difference it made for her. Because what happened after that was, well, first, she got accepted to Stanford on a full scholarship to study aerodynamics. She also, a few months ago, in the fall, helped her family get on the lottery for one of the affordable housing projects we finance, which is called Alfred Diaz, which is a Chisma project, the same developer who had put that together, that financial literacy class, with the help of our community banker. That family was able to get a 3-bedroom apartment 3 days before Christmas, as they were being evicted from their trailer because the landlord wanted to sell it. Wonderful story, isn't it? That family gets, we all know here, their life trajectory, completely changed in that moment. So we do know what success looks like, and we rejoice in it. What we also know is a reality check of it. 2 things. There were 1,800 people on the wait list in the lottery for those 60 units. So there is the story of Daisy, and there is a whole lot of people who didn't get a shot at getting decent housing. We also know we've achieved more production over the last few years than we ever did. But here it is. We did it because there was a whole lot more money. We didn't change the system. We haven't changed the way we're doing it. So we really haven't moved the needle. So there is the joy, and then there is the reckoning for all of us. We need to do more. Because we can imagine a future where everybody, like Daisy and her family, have decent and safe and affordable housing. Another quick story. Mayor Richardson mentioned the word dignity. Interestingly enough, that's the word I wanted to highlight, and I'll tell you why. A couple of days ago, this is a true story, we had our strategic session for commercial real estate for Chase. This is very few executives. It's a team of people who are mostly on the market rate world. And our head of commercial real estate, which doesn't come from our world, right, asked me point blank, what is it that community development banking does? What is it that affordable housing is about? And before I answered, he actually said it himself. He said, dignity. He just said one word. He said dignity. And we all know that here, right? But then he followed up and he said, what have you done to solve that crisis? And of course, in his mind, he meant the housing crisis. All of us here know it's a human crisis. For all we have achieved, we haven't, again, moved the needle. We keep doing it the same way. And it's very successful. We have a whole lot of wonderful stories like the one of Daisy. But can we imagine a future where everybody gets that? So this morning, it's my honor to introduce the opening plenary for this year's Housing California Conference. Achieving a housing system that will work for all Californians will require a shift in both strategies and allies. We can and should build on our existing tools, but we need to create the space to reimagine them. And very importantly, and you're going to hear more about this this morning, to ensure that we truly have a system where the government, the developers, the residents, and the service provider really work together to get to the next stage of what affordable housing is going to be about. We also need to build a movement with real power that extends beyond our traditional affordable housing stakeholders to include people with lived experience and groups that are part of the larger movement around racial and economic justice. And by this, and again, we're going to hear more about that, truly have them at the table. During this morning plenary, you're going to hear from incredible leaders who are going to explore with us a future that's both pragmatic and bold in terms of getting to systemic change. Please join me in welcoming Shioni, who will be the moderator, and all the other speakers to the stage for this morning opening plenary of the 45th Housing California Conference.
I'm going to pull us in because I can't hear very well. It seems so far apart.
Should we move closer?
Good morning. It's my pleasure to introduce this amazing plenary today. We have Diane Yantel, Tamika Moss, and William Goodwin. I'm going to let them each introduce themselves in just a second. Joining us, as Cecile said, our conversation today is really going to be looking forward. What does it take to actually secure the wins at the scale of the crisis we're experiencing? How do we imagine a different future and both bolster our movement and change our systems to accomplish those aspirations? That's what we're going to be digging into. These folks are sitting each in a very different place, but I think are bringing phenomenal lessons to all of us today. So I'm going to get started by having each of you share a little bit about the work you're doing, how you're thinking about success, how you're thinking about the future, and what's keeping you inspired along the way. As Cecile mentioned, like, we have some wins and we have some really hard work in front of us. So share a little bit about who you are, what you're doing, and what's inspiring you. And I might start right here with you, William.
Thank you, Shioni. Good morning, everyone. My name is William Goodwin. I am a member of the Resident United Network, and also you heard of them. No. And also a housing policy consultant with Hope Solutions. And we're trying to bring affordable housing to low-income communities and faith-owned land, and also just trying to move the needle, as we were hearing. And there are some successes that are happening in our communities. May I just give you a few?
Yeah.
Yeah, starting with a family from Nicaragua, husband and wife with twins. The husband always wanted to be in the criminal justice system, and so because he is in affordable housing, was able to work part-time and go to community college, and then eventually to San Francisco State University, where he got his bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and now he's a probation officer. A young lady, single mother, with the help of her parents, and because she lived in affordable housing, she was able to go to Cal State University and get her degree in math education, and now she's a middle school teacher in the community that she lives in. And then a young man grew up in the foster system, traditional age youth, living in a one-bedroom apartment with his small family, because that's what we give to transitional age youth.
Yeah.
That's a different conversation, though. But he was hustling, always working in construction, maintenance, mechanic. Finally was able to move out and move his family into his own home, their own home. And finally, a senior who always had a lifelong dream of opening a small business. Because she only pays 30% of her fixed income, was able to open a small business making pastries for the community. These are successes that happen every day. They don't get the fanfare. They're under the radar, but they're happening every day. And these are successes. I know home ownership is the big deal, but they're still successes.
Yeah. Thank you, William. Tamika, you recently stepped into a whole new role. What are you thinking about? What are you kind of digging into as you get started, and what's driving you in this new work?
Well, first of all, good morning, everyone. I'm so honored to share the stage with these titans. Thank you so much for being here, spending the next 2 days together. I'm Tamika Moss, and I am the newly appointed Secretary of the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency for the state of California. And, as I was listening to William, what is most powerful to me is that success is happening every day. It's happening for people in their lives. It's happening at the programmatic level. But I think Cecile talked about it. It's not necessarily happening at the scale that we needed at the systems level. And prior to accepting this new appointment, I started an organization called All Home in the Bay Area, where we looked at regional solutions to addressing housing and homelessness. And, hearing the mayor talk about the importance of regionalism, I think it's a really exciting success that we were able, many amazing leaders, female leaders, working with our legislature and leaders in the Bay Area to get the Bay Area Housing and Financing Agency off the ground, y'all. It's amazing, right? Los Angeles has followed suit with La Casa. And I think what it does is it now gives us the tools to start to think about scale. How do we work as a regional community to try to imagine a future where homelessness is rare, brief, and one time, where people actually have enough housing to meet them in their communities, right? Where there is enough housing for everyone who needs it. And so I think there's a lot of success in creating some of this infrastructure that's going to allow us to now put revenue measures on the ballot to generate more resources locally, to look at the voter threshold for housing bonds and making that accessible. We have to employ all the tools that are at our disposal, and I'm really excited about the groundwork that's been laid and the success that can come from that. And when I look around this room, that's the momentum and energy that I'm feeling stepping into this new role.
Diane, welcome to Long Beach and to California. You're leading an organization that looks a lot like us at the national level. And, our staff, our team, I know certainly takes a lot of learning from the work you're doing. Can you share a little bit about kind of what you all are up to and what's keeping you motivated?
Sure. Yeah, good morning. I'm so delighted to be here and on this panel. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Diane Yantel. I'm president and CEO of the National Low-Income Housing Coalition, and our work is all about advancing policy solutions to achieve housing justice, to ensure that people with the lowest incomes, the most marginalized people, have decent, stable, accessible, affordable homes. And there's so much to be inspired by, despite how difficult the work is and how steep the hill we still have to climb. But I'm most inspired by our collective work and impact during the pandemic. You know, I was talking to somebody recently who said that they think the word unprecedented is overused, and I don't think so when it comes to the pandemic and what we achieved together, and how when the pandemic happened, how we as a housing community really aligned with a singular purpose of protecting the lowest income tenants, getting people who are homeless to safety, saving lives, and we did. And when policymakers realized the scale of the challenge and the urgency, they responded, because of our collective work, they responded with resources and protections on a scale unlike any in our lifetimes. And so I'm inspired by the fact that our work, you know, kept millions of people who otherwise would have lost their homes stably housed during the pandemic, got people who were homeless to safety. But I'm as inspired by how much, what so many of us have said for so many years about the only thing that prevents us from ending homelessness, achieving housing justice, is a lack of political will. How we proved that. That was proved during the pandemic, and we were able to garner and get that level of political will necessary for an eviction moratorium, for resources for emergency rental assistance, for cash in people's pockets, for an expanded child tax credit. And if we did it then, I really believe that we can and we will do it again, and next time for longer term solutions.
Yeah. Tamika, I'm going to start with you. In this room, we do have broad agreement that realizing a future with homes for all requires a radical expansion of our housing supply and of the resources that we're bringing to bear to address this problem, and of a set of complementary policies and programs that can operate at the scale of the problem. What do you see as being the crucial building blocks to actually allow us to realize that? What do we need to do to get there, to kind of move in the direction that Diane just talked about?
Well, I think first and foremost, we have to stop asking ourselves whether or not we know the solutions to the problem. The answer is yes. And we saw those results certainly from the federal government during the pandemic. We saw unprecedented resources at the state level during the pandemic and through this administration's term. So I think the first sort of building block is to know that we actually know what we're doing. And there may be some things that we don't know how to do yet, but we actually know how to house people. We know how to build housing that is affordable to those who need it most. And so I think it's going to be really important for us to think about a paradigm shift along the full spectrum of housing needs that people have. You know, William talked about the fact that we talk a lot about home ownership. I think that is ultimately, you know, what we aspire to for a lot of folks in California, but a lot of Californians are renting. A lot of Californians are calling the sidewalk home. So we have to be able to intervene when people have zero incomes and are on our streets, all the way up the economic spectrum to those who can afford to buy their own homes. And so I think if we can look at our housing continuum and really evaluate what are the policies and strategies that actually need to be happening, and frankly, not pitting one solution against the other, but getting super creative about how we have concurrent investments in the solutions that work, right? Challenging our policymakers and our community around, yes, we have a deficit. Yes, there's never enough resources. But are we operating as efficiently and effectively as we can at all levels of government, right? To do our part to facilitate housing coming onto the market faster and cheaper. Interrogate, hold ourselves accountable, right? And then the last thing I'd say, Shioni, is I don't know that the status quo is failing everyone, because it's pretty solidly in place. Would y'all agree?
Yes.
So we have to convince those that this status quo that's working for some is not working for enough of us to have a just and equitable California for all, right? So how do we collectively come to the table to imagine a world, imagine a California where the status quo is actually helping everyone? And so that's the paradigm shift that I'm excited about, not criminalizing our poor folks for being poor, not othering and belonging others who is deserving of housing and who is not. We all deserve housing. So how do we create that future?
Diane, most of us here are deeply focused in state and local work and spend less time thinking about the federal government. You occupy a really important role from us. Can you share kind of how you're thinking about where the federal government is best positioned to be a partner and supporter, accelerator of this work, and really where we need the state and local governments to kind of step it up, to own the work? What does it look like for those, again, kind of California and local folks to fill the gaps and to step in where the federal government really isn't well suited to solve this problem?
Sure. So, of course, when it comes to the housing needs of people with the lowest incomes, there is a basic market failure, right? We can't build and operate housing that's affordable to people with the lowest incomes because the amount of rent they can afford to pay doesn't cover the costs. So this is a basic market failure that requires government intervention in the form of subsidies. And the scale of the need and the scale of the challenge requires the federal government to step in and provide subsidies, provide resources, ensure they're targeted to people with the greatest and clearest needs, the lowest income people. And there's been an interesting shift in recent years with both parties in Congress around how they approach the housing crisis. For a long time, we saw Republicans, many Republicans, denying that there was a housing crisis. That's really shifted. There's no denying at this point. They're hearing as much as any member of Congress about the needs in their local community. And so Republicans, by and large, are coming to committee hearings, they're coming to the issue that it is a state and local problem, that state and local zoning is the issue at hand, and that's what needs to be resolved. And of course, that's a convenient approach because it lets themselves off the hook for what the federal government needs to do. There's been a shift among Democrats too, where for a long time we had champions that were focused on the housing needs of the lowest income people. And I think because the housing crisis has increased to such a degree that they too are feeling a new urgency as they hear from their constituents about middle income people and middle income housing. And so we're starting to see actually some Democrats put forward really wasteful, misguided ideas about federal programs and federal subsidies for market rate housing, which is about the most bloated way you can approach the issue of market rate housing. So our focus is to keep the federal government, federal policymakers focused on what they must do, which is provide subsidies for those lowest income households. And then at the state and local level, there's a tremendously important role to play around those middle income housing issues, which relates entirely to local zoning. So certainly a lot more needs to be done in California and beyond, and you are doing a lot to address restrictive local zoning, remove those laws. But in the meantime, it's going to take a while for the federal government to provide the subsidies that are needed, for local zoning to be removed and housing to be built. So we have to protect tenants where they are now. We have to stem the tide of people falling into homelessness. We have to prevent evictions, and we do that with mostly at the state and local level with really robust and enforced tenant protections. And that's a place where here in California, you've really been leading the way and leading the country in putting forward really essential tenant protections. We've been working with partners across the country and tracking them, and there's been over 270 new tenant protections implemented at the state and local level since 2021 alone. And we still need more. We have to keep people housed while we work towards those larger scale solutions at the federal, state, and local level.
Thank you, Diane. William, you have been an amazing community advocate that has dedicated yourself to helping empower residents to advocate for services and resources that lift them out of poverty. What does it look like to meaningfully engage people with lived experience in the policy development process? How do we make sure that we're taking that beyond tokenism to actually centering those voices and experience in the design and implementation of programs? Have you seen examples that you really lift up as like, this is the model we should be striving for?
Yes, Shani. Actually, this is a model right here. Me being here on this stage with housing royalty means that people with lived experience matter, and that our voices in this discourse of who should be housed and where people should house is important. It also means, listening to what we have to say and actually valuing what we have to say, not just philosophically, but monetarily. And it also means that we don't wait to the end of the policy and after it's developed to bring us in as a checkbox, but bring us in at the beginning, at the policy design, all the way through implementation so that our voices are there. There's this mantra that nothing about us without us. And that means that anytime that there's a discussion that involves people with lived experience, a person with lived experience should be in the room to provide advice and understanding, because no one can represent us like us.
Right.
And I think having us at the table is important, but making us feel belonged, and also supporting people with lived experience to gain positions of power in commissions and councils. Because it's one thing, again, to be at the table, to be at the decision-making process and impacting decision, I think is important. Those are only a few.
How do you respond to some of the tensions that come up in this work? I know for our team, we hear engaging folks slows down the process, and this is such a big problem. We need a solution now. How do you respond to those and help people see that by going through that work, you're actually arriving at a better place?
Well, there are tensions all around, actually. There are tensions with tenant right groups who are, pushing for rent stabilization and 3% caps, and housing developers, affordable housing developers saying, hey, wait, time out. We need at least 5% to remain viable. And local government, seeing the urgency of expediting and streamlining approval process, and community engagement groups saying, hold on, how do we know these homes are even sustainable for a climate that's continuing changing? And also, people in the technical area just doing the work every day, trying to house people and give them services, and people like myself who are saying, hey, we should be at the table and making those decisions. So those tensions exist, but I think it's to be expected when an unstoppable movement like the housing, the housing movement collides with an immovable force like the housing crisis. There will be tension, but I think we move around those tensions by listening to each other and understanding that we're trying to undo decades of disenfranchisement, disinvestment, housing and zoning and land use policies that were never meant and designed for inclusivity and equity and shared values. And I think we just give each other grace. You know what I mean? And excuse me if I step on your toes while we try to house 250,000 people. And I think that's important, that we listen to each other, we come to the table, we bring architectural designers, we bring policy analysts, we bring government officials and people with lived experience all to the table and look at a policy from different perspectives. And then I think that makes the policy better, and it makes the process better, because there are no easy fixes here. And I think, like I've always said, I'm in it for the long haul. I think we all have been. We know that it's going to take time, but I think we have all that we need here in this room. Faith, the definition of faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence of things not seen. We have the substance in this room. We don't see the evidence now, but it's coming. And I think if we just stick to it, it'll happen.
Tamika, you have had the opportunity to work from so many different vantage points where you've really been able to explore what it looks like to build cross-sector partnerships to bridge across difference. Now you've stepped into this new leadership role in state government where I would say the folks in this room are really hungry for a new way of partnering together. How do we push through some of the tensions that William mentioned and really find a way to move forward together?
Well, I think first of all, we need to all just work for William, because I think we know where we're going if we do that. Look, I mean, we know that there are things in our systems and in our programs that aren't working. And we need to be honest about those things and have critical dialogue about what we can collectively do to remove the barriers for more housing to be produced and how to do that faster and cheaper. And we know that we are more than 3 million homes short of what we need in the state of California. So from my perspective, although these tensions are real and we struggle with them every single day, I do think, and perhaps it's faith, perhaps it's appealing to our bigger selves, we have to transcend those barriers in service of that broader goal. There are many self-interests that prevent us from doing our best work in terms of producing enough housing that we need, providing the services that people need in order to stay housed and to thrive. And that's decades in the making, right? I would even say maybe centuries in the making, right? We didn't get here overnight, and we're not going to get out of it overnight. So we know that this is a long game. We know that this is a marathon. But there are also things that we need to be doing right now to break through some of those barriers. We need a much more collaborative and coordinated approach to our work. I know that some of my colleagues at HCD, Cal HFA, many of the departments that are within my agency, I look forward to working with them and with all of you about what can we do together. Everyone has a role to play. You said it. Business leaders, philanthropy, our housing providers, our governments, our nonprofit organizations. Like, we say that, but it actually is true. And unless we figure out a way to work in harmony and coordination around the big goal that we care about, then we're not going to win. And there are forces that don't want us to win. People enjoy that we are fractious, right? That we're messy, that we are not organized to get to our broader housing goals. There are actually people who that works for. But I contend that it doesn't work for enough of us to overtake the momentum that we're going to need to get to that 3 million home goal. And so in my new role, I'm really excited to create reciprocity in these relationships so that we can lift up what government's role is and take responsibility and be accountable. But we as a community need to be accountable too. And we need to set outcomes and metrics about what we're working toward. What's not working? Right. How do we dispense with what's not working? And then how do we replace that with the things that are working? That's the work. And I think we need to be persistent and unapologetic about engaging in that paradigm and not getting stuck in our old ways of being. That's not where we need to be for right now. So I'm really excited about that.
Diane, Housing California and the National Low Income Housing Coalition both really were built on this notion that it's going to take all of us, that we're these big tent organizations bringing people together to create that political will and change. How has the way that you all have been thinking about your big tent evolved? Where do you see strategic opportunities to grow that tent and to bring new voices in? And where are the tensions that you're running into as you pursue that growth?
Yeah, I'd start with the end of that question and go back to the issue of middle-income people. And in our history, any social issue raises the level of political will necessary for action when it impacts the middle class. So that's when policymakers really start to feel the urgency and really start to say, we need action now. And that's what's happening now with the housing crisis. You know, the housing crisis, the lack of homes affordable for lowest income people, for extremely low income people, that's been going on for years, for decades. But it's in recent years that it's being felt higher up the income ladder, and that's why we're getting this tremendous amount now of political attention. I was at an event recently where the vice president spoke, and she said housing is one of our top, maybe the top issue this election year. And tonight is the State of the Union, and we'll hear President Biden talk about housing probably more than we've heard in a State of the Union for decades. So there's a real opportunity here. This is our moment, right? And the risk is that, like with other social issues, the solutions that get put forward, that move forward, that are enacted, impact the middle class and leave behind the lowest income, the most marginalized people, the people who have been suffering the longest. So we have to look for those connections across the political and across the housing spectrum, because it is a spectrum, and when people who could otherwise become first-time homebuyers can't, and they're stuck in the rental market, that raises costs, it impacts those people who are the lowest income. So we have to care about the whole spectrum, and we have to find ways to address it together. But we also have to be very clear-eyed in that very often those lowest income people are left behind in the solutions unless there's a very powerful movement focused on their needs. And so one of the things that we did at the Coalition a few years ago was we created what's called the Opportunity Starts at Home campaign. And we did it together with the National Alliance to End Homelessness and Center on Budget and Children's Health Watch. We did it both because we wanted to bring in multi-sector partners, leaders from the healthcare, the education, anti-poverty, anti-hunger, and beyond communities who care, who recognize that how connected affordable housing is to them achieving their goals. But we also wanted to shift who we work with, who we think of when we talk about the field, and to recognize that just because we care about, or just because housing is in the name of our organization, it doesn't mean that at the end of the day, when compromise happens, that we have the same end goals in mind. And so this new field that we are working to develop are partners that are outside of the housing field, but what we have in common is that focus on people with the lowest incomes and the most marginalized people. And that's been pretty powerful to expand and to see in action. Those were some of the groups that mobilized hardest with us for some of those pandemic protections, where some of the housing groups maybe felt like an eviction moratorium wasn't what they wanted to push for, but some of these other groups focused on the needs of people with the lowest incomes did. So I think we have to do both. And we've done that too in the field of disaster recovery, where we've expanded our work, expanded our partnerships, but again, always with a focus on people with the lowest incomes, the most marginalized people.
So I have one more question for you all. And it's really, how do we show up differently? How do we show up differently to actually realize this shift that we're each talking about? And I'm going to start with you, William, and then just go down the line.
Yeah, I think we show up as if homelessness has been ended and then work our way backwards. Because I think once we solve this issue, people will have to have homes and sustain those homes. So we will need thriving families because we know that thriving families create thriving communities. We'll need to have thriving communities because we know thriving communities are sustainable, and we'll need sustainable homes to end this crisis. So I think we show up with the attitude that we've already done it, and so what's next? What will we have to do then? And start there and then work our way backwards.
Thank you. Tamika?
I think we show up differently by having a yes and mentality. It is really easy to say no. And it's harder to get to a yes and set of solutions that requires all of us to make trade-offs and compromises around what we can collectively do together. And in order for us to get to the scale of the challenges that we face, because it is life and death. People are literally losing their lives because they are exposed to the vulnerabilities of not having a place to call home. And so we have to act with the sense of urgency that is required while still holding the space for the long-term goals that are going to take us decades to achieve. And so yes and yes to housing. I want to just shout out Long Beach, actually, because not only is the mayor yes to housing, but the entire city is a pro-housing designation, a state designation that recognizes when people go above and beyond in their commitment to housing all of their neighbors. And so we want more of that. I think that the state, this particular administration, has been leading in its commitment to housing and homelessness, but that was in the midst of previous administrations not investing in housing and homelessness. And so we want to see that continue, and we want to challenge ourselves to believe that this is in fact a challenge that we can solve. It may not be in my lifetime, but I'm on the journey, and I'm on the journey with all of you.
I think we have to show up with urgency. We have to show up with optimism and recognition of what's possible. But I actually want to go back to what William said about the importance of people with lived expertise being central to the work and the leadership and the solutions. And everything that he said in his answer there, I want to underline and bold and exclamation point, because I do think that is what it will take for us to build the power, to shift the focus, to build the momentum, and to win. We have to amplify and support and engage people with lived experience. And at the Coalition, we've been doing more deliberate work in that area, and I really want to encourage and urge all of us to do the same.
Please join me in thanking our amazing panelists. And don't get up. We have a few more things you all can move on, but before we let you all go to break, we want to spend a few minutes honoring and celebrating a beloved friend and colleague, Maurilio Leon, who many of you knew. Maurilio was a living embodiment of many of the themes the plenary explored. He saw the connections between housing and the broader work of racial and economic justice, and his sudden passing almost 2 weeks ago was a huge loss for his family, his colleagues, and to the many communities he dedicated his life to serving. I first had the pleasure of meeting Maurilio in Tenua right about the same time in 1998 when I was working at Latino Issues Forum and he was working at the Greenlining Institute. The two organizations shared office space, shared a vision for California where communities of color were invested in and supported to thrive, and shared a deep commitment to cultivating young leaders of color and propelling us on our journey. Mauri and I had much in common, Both of our families had roots in Mexico and had been agricultural workers here in California. We grew up in strange rural communities that straddled this very odd mix of fierce ultra-conservatism and crazy ultra-liberalism, neither of which served our families or our communities or other people like us. We attended UC Berkeley together. We didn't meet there, we met at work, but we attended UC Berkeley together, and we're the first in our families to earn university degrees. And we were born 2 days apart, which meant that we often spent our birthdays celebrating together. While these things served as the initial bond in our friendship, over the last 20 plus years, Maurilio's strength of character and purpose and his abundant capacity for love and joy is what made him a truly special friend. Our friendship has bolstered me and so many others in my personal and professional life. Among the many lessons I've taken from this friendship, Maurilio taught me that no matter how important and urgent our work, we should never take ourselves too seriously. And that joy and boundless love for our people is essential. How did he do this? He teased me. He teased me incessantly. He loved to tease people. He loved to tease me a lot. He'd tease me for everything from eating yams for lunch instead of breakfast. This is a big argument in the Mexican community. For hating suits and wearing long skirts to work. For putting flowers in my hair. For being a vegetarian. I was a chippy, a Chicana hippie, you say. And for so many other things. But his teasing was never mean-spirited. I know he did this to many of you too. It was a way of expressing affection and signaling that I see all of you. It was a reminder to loosen up, to laugh, and to find joy in the world, even when it feels incredibly hard. Maurilio brought this spirit of love and joy wherever he went. This light, combined with his profound sense of humility, service, and accountability to struggling people, made him an incredible leader. In a period when even those of us who are doing this work wonder sometimes if change is really possible, this joy and love is crucial. They will sustain us as individuals and can give us the tools to build new relationships, to ground us in a shared sense of purpose, and to step forward bravely for those people who desperately need us to succeed, for families like the one he and I came from. So today, may we all honor Maurilio by living into his values and embodying the love he so generously shared with all of us and with so many others. I'm gonna invite Matt, I don't know which side. Matt, are you over here? Matt Huerta, to the stage to share a couple of words. Oh, sorry, Matt's on the wrong side. I'm looking to the wrong side. Come on up, Matt.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to be here with you all today. So I just figured it'd be best to share a few remarks, basically a letter. Mi hermano, carnal, jefe, co-conspirator, friend. We miss you, especially at occasions such as this amazing conference, when your leadership and positivity would shine the brightest. It was an honor to serve with you on the California Coalition for Rural Housing Board of Directors, just one of your many leadership roles in our movement for housing justice. In the rural housing space, you honored your immigrant family and our comunidad by championing farm workers housing as the Chief Operating Officer at Community Housing Opportunities Corporation. Thank you for lifting up not only the most vulnerable, but those campesinos and members of our familia who break their backs to bring us our precious comida, the foundation and health of our well-being. Thank you for always being 100, speaking your truth. During one of our many talks, you shared that our DEI work shouldn't be as complicated as what we have made it. It's simply about hiring, training, and paying BIPOC staff in leadership positions. I thank you for that and will continue to carry this agenda forward in your honor. Thank you for showing us that you can be a fearless warrior and also kind and fun. I wish you were here in person, but I also know that your spirit will continue to inspire us and your light will never fade. Muchas gracias, hermano.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Katie Lamont, and I co-lead Tenderloin Neighborhood Development Corporation. I thank you so much for being here. Maurelio was my partner for the last 2 years, and I've been reflecting on our too short time together. I didn't know Maurelio before he came to TNDC, but I could see from his work that he knew the city, he knew place-based work, he knew policy, and that he was deeply committed to equity. When he got to TNDC, Maurelio would walk the Tenderloin, stop in at our buildings at all hours, talk to desk clerks, custodians, managers, maintenance people, social workers. They've told me how they felt that he gave them his full attention. He remembered details about their cats and their kids. He loved the sanctuary spaces that we create in our interior courtyards with their green spaces. He would pause and listen to the quiet, observe a hummingbird. He always described himself as an ag guy. He told stories about growing up, following harvests. He brought us honey from almond trees. So different from my own life experience. When things were hard with people, he counseled me to seek them out, find ways to connect. He believed deeply in relationship building as the path forward. That through relationships we build community, and through community we affect systems change. He believed deeply in the power of place-based work. He wanted us to have relationships with every part of the community, to embrace diversity of thought, even though that's messy and can feel hard. He led with what's working well, offered solutions, said yes and to things, like Tamika reminded us to. He spoke in plain language, using simple, clear messages, and he really listened to what people had to say. These are the things I will carry forward as I work to honor his belief, our shared belief, all of us, in homes, health, and voice. Thank you.
I want to thank Lily and Cindy, I think they are over there, for doing an amazing job pulling together photos, stories. If you would like, we are collecting these photos and stories and we'll be sharing them with Maurelio's family. We've set up a space at the back of the room, so as you're going out for your break or throughout the day, please take a minute to share anything you'd like, and we'll be sharing that again with the family. As we move into the break, We'll have coffee and drinks outside. This is a rough transition. Thank you all for your grace. We'll have workshops starting at around 10:45. Our HCD team is going to be here with us. We'll have informal table discussions here at lunchtime, so bring your lunch. We'll post on the app. You can add your own discussion if you want to host one. And we'll be gathering back here at 4 o'clock for an afternoon plenary. So enjoy your day. Take a minute to share your memories, and most of all, enjoy each other. Thank you.